That's the thing about stories. They never really end, do they? We're still telling the same stories we've always told, just with different names, different faces.
Planet of the Apes is a 1963 sci-fi classic by Pierre Boulle. We'll call him PB. The classic that launched a phenomenon. That is correct. This series has been going on for over 50 years and spans over 10 movies, a cartoon series, a live-action television series, 4 or 5 video games, depending on how you count, other novelizations of these movies, comic book adaptations, lots of toys and action figures, probably other stuff that I'm not remembering here, but this really is one of the largest sci-fi media franchises. We're doing Planet of the Apes today because recently I put out a poll on YouTube asking which would you guys like to see me do next. This, by a majority of votes, won. So today we'll be doing Planet of the Apes. And I'm going to be honest, I had to narrow this down because there's so many ape stories in this series here. I had to pick which most closely follow this original book here. So this is like the beginning story when the astronaut crash lands on a planet of the apes. He says, whoa, where am I? What's with all these apes? And they capture him. Then he has to escape. And there's a big twist at the end. This is that story. Okay. This isn't like the rise of the kingdom of the son of the monster of the conquering of the planet of the apes thing. This is the original OG origin story that introduces this. And as far as I'm concerned, this was only done twice. This was only officially done twice. This was the Charlton Heston movie. That is a classic, one of my favorite sci-fi movies. Got the 50th anniversary Blu-ray right here. And then there's the very interesting Tim Burton one from 2001. There's so many different stories going on in this Apes franchise that I really just wanted to focus it on the 2 feature films that most closely follow this story right here. So, enough of me blabbing. Let's get into it. Let's start this adaptation showdown with just some basic facts about these stories. When does this story take place? The book takes place around the year 2500. Okay, I know in all of these there's a bit of time travel involved, but the majority of the plot takes place around the year 2500. In Charlton Heston's version, it's a little more complicated. This is what Earth time was 1972, and for them it's 2673. Also later on, most of the plot after they crash takes place in the year 3978. So this does not get a point for that because honestly that's pretty far away from 2500. The Mark Wahlberg version, it was a little less clear because we do see a little counter on his ship. I actually had to just look this up. It really takes place in the year 5021 AD, so that is nowhere near 2500. So neither movies get a point for the year. Besides the when, the next obvious category is where. Where does the story take place? Well, the original novel takes place on a planet orbiting around the Betelgeuse star system. The Charlton Heston movie, I'm going to have to spoil this a little bit. They're on Earth. The whole time they're on Earth. I mean, guys, look, this is over 50 years old. There's like 10 movies. There's video games. There's a cartoon series. There's a live-action TV series. There's comic books. There's novelizations. If you don't know that by now, come on. Come on. All right. Charlton Heston was on Earth the whole time. I can't really talk about the where without spoiling that, so oops, sorry. I'd like to point out, too, that in Charlton Heston's version, it's Earth, but very specifically, it's New York City, because at the very end, he zooms out and there's the Statue of Liberty. And it's really confirmed that it's New York City in the sequel to this, called Beneath the Planet of the Apes, when the other astronaut that comes looking for Taylor goes down to a ruined subway system and sees the Queensboro Plaza subway sign. He sees a poster saying New York City Summer Festival or something like that. So if you think about it, Planet of the Apes is really one of the classic New York City tales, like Manhattan or Annie Hall or something like that. So even though Charlton Heston's version is on Earth and in New York City, which I think is a pretty cool detail, that is not like the book, so they don't get a point. And Mark Wahlberg's version, they never really say where he is, so no point for that either. Moving on. What is the planet's name that they're on? Well, in the original book, the astronauts named the planet Soror, S-O-R-O-R, which if you Google it, it's Latin for meaning like sister. So it's like a sister planet to Earth, because when they landed, they thought it looked very much like where they came from. So in Charlton Heston's version, as we discussed, this planet is called Earth, and that is not Soror. So does not get a point. Mark Wahlberg's version, I also had to look this up because just some of the details were a little muddy in that movie, but it's called Ashlar, apparently. Whatever, which is not Soror. So, no point for either one. All right, we're off to a solid start here. Next category is what is the main guy's name? Well, in the original book, you can see his name is Ulysses Moreau, or whatever. I can't speak French, but it's Ulysses, we'll call him. It's a French novel. The guy was French. He wrote it in French. This was translated to English. So the main guy, he has a more French-sounding name than Charlton Heston's version, which is a lot more Americanized. They named him George Taylor. That is not Ulysses, no point for them. Mark Wahlberg's version, his name is Leo Davidson, also very Americanized name, so no point for him either. Next category is what is the main guy's occupation? In the original book, he's a journalist. He's a journalist who went on the space flight because he was interviewing the main doctor, professor guy who was going on this mission. And I guess that's how he got wrapped up into going on this space flight. They don't really go into it, but he's a journalist. In Charlton Heston's movie, he's just an astronaut.
In less than an hour, we'll finish our 6th month out of Cape Kennedy.
They don't really go too much into it or exactly what he's doing, but he's just an astronaut, so no point for that. In Mark Wahlberg's version, he is also not a journalist, and he's like a dude that trains monkeys on simulations or something. Yeah, I know they're not monkeys, they're apes, they're chimps, whatever. It's fun to say monkey. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Monkey is a more fun thing to say than ape or primate or simian or chimp. It's a monkey. Come on, that's funny. Look at him. Look at him acting like a monkey. But yeah, Mark Wahlberg doesn't get a point either. Next category is why is the main character on this space mission? Well, in the original book, like I said, he was a journalist, and he thought that he would be able to write one of the greatest stories of all time if he travels far into the future with these other scientist guys. That's pretty much it. They don't go into too much details about it. I don't know who he thought was going to read the story because they go very far in the future and pretty much everyone he knows would have been dead. Maybe they thought they could go back in time. I don't know. Charlton Heston's version, let's see why he was on this mission.
I'm a seeker too, but my dreams aren't like yours. I can't help thinking somewhere in the universe there has to be something better than man. Has to be.
He just wants to explore generally because he doesn't really feel like there's anything for him on Earth. He doesn't, I guess, have a family or a wife, and he, like you said, he thinks there must be something better than man. So, no point for him. Why does Mark Wahlberg go on this mission? Well, he doesn't really mean to. In his movie, his favorite chimp that he was training, named Pericles, they send Pericles on this little space probe to go check out this electromagnetic space storm thing because, rather send a chimp than a human first, and then Pericles gets lost in this mysterious space storm, and then Mark Wahlberg goes after him, or as he very poetically puts it,
I'm going to get my chimp.
You bring that thing back here now!
I'm going to get my chimp. So, no point for him. Next category is were there other humans on board? In the original book, yes, there were. Besides the main guy, Ulysses, the other main dude was Professor Antel, and then Arthur Levain, who was the scientist. Were there other humans on board in Charlton Heston's movie? Yes, so the first point goes to Charlton Heston. As you can see here, there were 3 other traveling companions with him, and their names were Landon, Stewart, and Dodge. Although Stewart doesn't make it very far in the story, it's really Taylor, Landon, and Dodge. Mark Wahlberg does not get a point because it's just him on the mission. The next category is there a chimp on board with them? In the original book, yes, there was. Their companion chimp's name was Hector. Charlton Heston does not get a point because there was no chimp on board with them. However, Mark Wahlberg gets his first point here because Pericles is sent on this mission and he goes after him. So he's got a little companion chimp, and well, I guess I'll spoil this one too. He shows up at the end of the movie. They think it's their god named whatever. Fuck, I don't care. The next category is where do the astronauts land? In the original book, they land on a lush green field of grass that reminded them of Norway. In Charlton Heston's movie, they land in a desert, which, looks like they filmed this in Arizona or Grand Canyon or something, somewhere out in the Southwest. Of course, we know story-wise it's New York City or right near there. I mean, who knows? This could be New Jersey. They might run to Tony Soprano here. Mark Wahlberg does not land in a lush green field. He rather lands in a thick, dense jungle in this giant pond here. And then they're just like in a barren wasteland. is the greater location. So neither movie gets a point for where the astronauts landed. All right, we got some good points coming up finally for these movies. So, do they have guns with them? In the original text, yes, they did. They had carbine rifles. Now, I'm not going to get specific on whether or not they had carbine rifles because neither movie did, but Charlton Heston gets a point because they had guns with them.
Let's see, 1 pistol, 20 rounds ammo,
And Mark Wahlberg gets a point because he had a gun. It's more like a ray gun or something, like some kind of laser gun, but whatever, it's a gun. Speaking of guns, the next category is, do the apes have guns? In the original book, yes, they do. The gorillas go on a hunting party and shoot at people, and yep, well, they have guns, just like in Charlton Heston's movie, so he gets a point here. Mark Wahlberg's movie does not get a point for this because the old chimp here shows the bad guy this like rusted old gun and says this was the source of their power. It has the might of 1,000 spears or something like that.
Has the power of 1,000 spears. Against this, our strength means nothing.
So no, they don't have guns in this movie. The next category is, do the astronauts find a waterfall, take their clothes off, and go for some naked swimming? In the original book, yes, they do. Charlton Heston's movie will get a point for this because they also do. They go skinny dipping. Mark Wahlberg, no point for him. The next category is, do the astronauts find footprints? Footprints first of the wild humans. What indicates to them that there is other life on the planet that they crashed on? In the original book, they do find a footprint, and they realize that, oh, this is about the size and shape of a human female footprint. And that's basically how it happens in Charlton Heston's movie. It's kind of just like it was described in the book. Mark Wahlberg does not find a footprint, so no point for him. Next category is, what is the main female's name? Not the ape female, the human female who's the companion to the main guy. What is her name? In the original book, he calls her Nova. Nice little name. Charlton Heston's movie, he also calls her Nova.
You know the... No. Yeah, me Tarzan, you Jane.
Mark Wahlberg's movie, it's Diana. It's like Diana, but not. It's Diana? I don't know. No point for him. The next category is, were the wild humans scared of the astronauts' clothes and their guns? In the original book, yes, they were. As they were swimming in the waterfall, the wild humans snuck up around their campsite and just broke apart their clothes and their guns, tore everything up, because to them it reminded them of the evil apes and gorillas that hunt them in the forest. So they thought they had something to do with that, so they got scared and they tore them apart. Charlton Heston's movie is going to get a point for that because, again, it's basically like it happened in the book. Mark Wahlberg's movie does not get a point for this. In fact, it's the opposite. At one point, one of the gorillas he's sneaking around with grabs his pistol and smashes it.
What
the hell are you doing?
You could use that against us.
The next category is, are the astronauts under attack right away when they land on the planet? In the original book, they are not. A couple days pass, 1 or 2 days at least, I think. They go swimming. He meets Nova. Nova brings them back to their tribe, their nesting area. They sleep in like big gorilla nests on the ground. And I think 1, maybe 2 days passed. So it wasn't immediate that they were attacked by the gorilla hunting party. That is closely done in Charlton Heston's movie. They were traveling for about, a day, maybe 2. They went swimming. The wild humans broke apart their stuff. And then they're going through a field. Then the gorillas attack. Okay, so that is more like this original book here. Mark Wahlberg's movie, he's under attack basically from the minute he gets out of his spaceship. So no point for him. Next category is the gorilla hunting scene. The original book starts with a scene where after the humans crash, they meet the wild humans, a day or so goes by, walk through the woods, and all of a sudden there's a noise, and these gorillas start charging through, and they have their rifles, and they're basically going on a safari like humans would go, like some African's big game safari, but they're gorillas hunting the wild humans in the forest. Both movies get a point because both feature that scene. One, they have guns, so like I discussed, that's more close like it's done in the book. The gorillas had guns in the book in Charlton Heston's movie. Mark Wahlberg's did not have guns, but they are still attacking them nonetheless. Maybe it's just because I saw them as I was a kid or something, but these seem way scarier to me than the apes in the Tim Burton movie. Next category is team member killed. In the original book, yes, one of the original astronauts who was on the ship was killed during the gorilla hunting scene as he was trying to run away across a field. Charlton Heston's movie will get a point because, well, that's basically how it happened. Mark Wahlberg's does not get a point because 1, they don't have guns, and 2, there was no one else on the ship with him. The next category is Gorilla Hunting Lodge Pictures. In the original book, after the hunting expedition was done, the gorillas gathered their prized humans they either killed or captured, brought them back to a hunting lodge. There were other gorillas who were skinning and preparing the game they captured and posing up the dead humans like this for pictures with the gorillas. So I guess they do have camera technology in this world. Charlton Heston's movie will get a point because, well, basically how it happened.
Smile.
The next category is, does the Ape City have paved roads, crosswalks, villages, and shops? In the original book, yes, they do. In Charlton Heston's movie, I can't really give a point to that because they don't have paved roads. I mean, they have roads. It's for their horse and buggy stuff, but it's not paved roads. They don't really have crosswalks like it was discussed in the book. Actually, a funny detail of the book is that the way the apes got across the street on the crosswalk is they had monkey bars. They got up and, climbed across the street. I like that. It's clever. Mark Wahlberg's version also does not have paved roads. They're still doing the horse and buggy thing. The next category is the holding room with the cages that the main guy is put in after he's captured. In the original book, yes, they have that. Charlton Heston's movie will get a point here because, again, that is described basically like it was in the book. While Mark Wahlberg is also put in a cage, I am not going to give him a point because of the two, Charlton Heston's movie does it more closely to the original book. There's no room with cages that other humans are kept in. It's just kind of this one paddy wagon that they're being taken back to Ape City in. The next category is, what is the main female ape's name? In the book, her name is Zira. In Charlton Heston's movie, her name is also Zira.
Good morning, Dr. Zira.
Good morning, Julius.
In Mark Wahlberg's movie, her name is Ari or Ari. I don't know. Either way, it's not Zira. I mean, I guess you added a Z and then reversed it. No point for him. The next category is, how does the main guy demonstrate intelligence to Zira? Zira is one of the scientists studying the humans in their cages. I guess she's like a biologist or a psychologist for the animals or something like that. She's a scientist studying them. And Ulysses in the book, he is smart, regular, normal human journalist, and he's in there. The other humans are basically just wild animals. They don't have the intelligence that you or I do. He tries to present himself as a very proper human. He stands upright, he pays attention every time someone comes in the room, he nods, he genuflects and bows to them. So he tries to act very noble and gentlemanly and respectful to these apes. That's how he tries to impress them at first. Both movies feature a similar thing where the captured guy is trying to win over the confidence of the main female ape, but between the two, I'm going to have to give this again to Charlton Heston.
That bright eyes is remarkable. He keeps trying to form words.
He does try and act proper and not animal-like like the other ones in the cages to get their attention, and that seems to work. Mark Wahlberg's version, he just kind of says, "Help me. Help me. Please help me." Next category is, do the apes and the main guy speak the same language? In the original book, they do not. Ulysses, in the main book, the hero from this book, he speaks French. French author, originally written in French, so the main character speaks French. And he communicates with the apes because they learn to speak French, and he initially learned some ape words, and they kind of meet in the middle, somewhere between ape grunting and French, which, it's not that much of a difference anyway. So neither movie gets a point for this because they all speak English. Tim Burton movie, they are having conversations with Mark Wahlberg with no problem. In Charlton Heston movie, he initially can't speak because he was shot in the neck and was mute for a while. That's what makes this iconic line all the more powerful when he says, "Get your stinking hands off me, you damn dirty apes."
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape.
They all look at him and go, I always like that one in the background, just mouth open like, Why can't the main guy communicate with the apes? In the book, it's because they speak a different language. So, like I mentioned, neither movie gets a point for this. Charlton Heston could not speak because he was injured during the hunting party. And Mark Wahlberg could always speak to these apes, apparently. The next category is, do the humans in the cages get sugar cubes as rewards? In the book, yes, they do. Charlton Heston's movie will also get a point for this because, well, look, there they are getting sugar cubes.
Do we want some sugar, old-timer?
The next category is the wisest orangutan around, the good Dr. Zaius. In the original book, yes, we have Dr. Zaius. Charlton Heston's movie, obviously, also has Dr. Zaius.
Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Oh, Dr. Zaius.
Yes, amusing. A man acting like an ape. Don't speak to me in absolutes.
It's one of the best characters in this movie. Don't speak to me in absolutes. Mark Wahlberg does not have Dr. Zaius. Next category is besides getting the ape's attention while he's in the cages, how does the main guy finally win over the main female ape who then helps him on his journey? In the original book, he grabs her pen and paper or gets it, I don't remember. Either way, he gets pen and paper and he starts writing down geometric shapes and math equations and stuff that only creatures with a higher intelligence could know. Universal things that when the ape sees it, she goes, wow, he's smart. Again, I'm going to give this point to Charlton Heston because although it's not geometric stuff he's writing down, he does get pen and paper and write down English words, and she goes, oh my god, he has a brain. Unlike Mark Wahlberg's, where, like I said, he just goes, help me. The next category is 3 types of apes. The original book has 3 distinct types of apes on the planet of the apes. You got the chimpanzees, the orangutans, and the gorillas. Charlton Heston's movie gets a point for this because, look, there they are. There's 3 types of apes. Mark Wahlberg's movie gets a point because, look, 3 apes right there. This next category goes a little deeper, and do these 3 different ape types have distinct personality traits? In the book, yes, they certainly do. The chimpanzees are more of the progressive side of things. They're more scientists. They're more sensitive. Like if there were to be artists in this world, it would be the chimps. The orangutans represent the old guard, more conservative side of things. They're like, don't bother me with these new ideas. Science is science. We must hold on to the old ways. That's how the orangutans act. The gorillas act like, well, gorillas. They're like the big soldier, militaristic types. Charlton Heston's movie does that basically exactly like it's done in the book, so he's going to get a point here. Mark Wahlberg's movie is not going to get a point here because while they do have the 3 different types of apes, they don't really have distinct characteristics like they do in the Heston movie or in the original book. They kind of just blend them. It's all one wild ape on this planet, and you got chimps who are married to orangutans apparently, and it's all over the place. The next category is the Ape Zoo. In the original book, yes, there is an ape zoo. Well, it's not an ape zoo, it's the Apes Zoo where they keep the humans. And in the original book, Ulysses goes and he sees one of his comrades is held up in the ape zoo. That was a big scene in the book. So in the Heston and Wahlberg movies, we don't see the ape zoo. But between the 2 of them, I'm going to have to give this point once again to Charlton Heston because it's at least mentioned.
If he can speak, he belongs in a public zoo.
Mark Wahlberg's movie, the apes actually have no idea what a zoo is.
These zoos you speak of, what are they? This word is not familiar.
The next category is, does one of the captured astronauts regress his intelligence or no longer have the normal human brain capacities when the hero later finds him? In the original book, yes, that's pretty much exactly like how it's done. And it's kind of sad. It's the main professor guy. Professor, a smart, learned individual, is now kept in the human zoo, and the main character goes and sees him. He tries to communicate with him, but he's too far gone. I guess his intelligence is just lost after, being naked in the jungle for a week. We've all been there. So Mark Wahlberg's movie is not going to get a point for this because, like we mentioned, there were no other traveling companions with him on his spaceship. Charlton Heston's movie, not exactly like it's done in the book where he goes to the zoo and sees the professor in there, but he does see one of his former comrades when the apes bring out this group of captured humans, and he has been lobotomized, so he no longer has the human intelligence. So, I'll give it a point. The next category is Ape Museum. In the original book, yes, there was an Ape Museum. Mark Wahlberg's movie, there was not an Ape Museum. Charlton Heston's movie, yep, we got an ape museum here. We got the early humans, early man doing caveman poses, and the horrifying thing is that one of his fellow astronauts who was captured and killed in the field was then put up as a display in the Ape Museum. Those bastards. The next category is Ape Religion. Did these apes have a clearly defined religion? In the book, it's only vaguely talked about. They don't really go too much into it. So neither movie is really going to get a point here. Charlton Heston's movie does, again, they don't go too into it, but they do hint at ape religious stuff.
That The Almighty created the ape in his own image. Have you forgotten your scripture, the 13th scroll?
Mark Wahlberg's movie is not going to get a point because they do clearly have a religion and an ape savior who they call Simos, and way later in the movie, Mark Wahlberg's companion, Chimp, named Pericles, shows up in a spaceship and they think it's Simos, like it's their second coming of Monkey Christ for them. So no point for him. The next category is what is the main male ally ape's name? In the original book, his name is Cornelius, a proper name for a proper ape. In Charlton Heston's movie, he is also Cornelius. In Mark Wahlberg's movie, there really is no main male chimp ally like playing the Cornelius role, so no point for him. Next category is what is Cornelius's job? In the original book, he is an archaeologist. Charlton Heston will get a point because he is also an archaeologist.
I hear you're planning another archaeological expedition.
With the Academy's approval, sir.
What does he do as an archaeologist? Is he looking for proof of an earlier human civilization before the apes? In the original book, yes, he definitely is. Charlton Heston's movie will get another point because, he is.
I discovered traces of an early ape creature dating back some 1,300 years, roughly.
The next category is the Forbidden Zone. Ooh, scary, right? Well, in the original book, there is no Forbidden Zone, at least not like we see it in either of these movies, so neither is going to get a point. In the Heston movie, the Forbidden Zone is a big deal.
You visited the Forbidden Zone.
No creature can survive in the Forbidden Zone.
And in the Wahlberg movie, they call it Kalima, which, the twist, it was on the ship. It means caution, live animals. The beginning of those letters, Kalima. It's kind of stupid. The next category is human doll. At Cornelius's archaeological dig site, does he find a human toy doll as part of his evidence for an earlier intelligent civilization? In the book, yes, he does. Heston's movie will also get a point because, we got a doll. In the book, the doll says Papa, and here it seems to say Mama, so whatever. I'm not going to take a point off for that. They find a doll. Wahlberg's movie does not have a doll. Next category is Cornelius the first one to make the connection and realize that there was a previously intelligent civilization before his own? In the original book, yes, he was that first one. In Charlton Heston's movie, I'm going to give it a point because he did figure it out on his own. Cornelius is a very smart scientist, and through his archaeology and his research, he made the jump, the leap of logic on his own and figured it out. So I'm going to give him a point.
Not before I discovered evidence of a simian culture that existed long before the sacred scrolls were written.
The next category is, did Dr. Zaius always know about the previous human civilization? In the book, he did not. So Dr. Zaius is in the book, but he actually doesn't play as much of a role as he does in the Heston movie. He's not at all in the Mark Wahlberg movie, but in the Heston movie, he's like the main antagonist, the old guard of science who doesn't want to hear any of these theories of a previously intelligent civilization. So yeah, in the book, after a point, Dr. Zaius just kind of goes away and he's not involved too much in the plot. In Heston's movie, Dr. Zaius did always know of the previous human civilization, so no point for him.
I have always known about man.
And in Mark Wahlberg's movie, it was the main bad guy ape's dying father who tells him that he has always known. So that's not Dr. Zaius, and I don't know, no point for him.
In the time before time, we were the slaves and the humans were the masters.
The next category is Ape Lobotomy Lab. In the original book, yes, there was a laboratory where the apes performed experimental lobotomies on the humans. In Charlton Heston's movie, we're going to give him another point because, that's exactly what they do. Mark Wahlberg's movie, that is not mentioned.
Experimental brain surgery on these creatures is one thing, and I'm all in favor of it. Experimental surgery on the speech centers, on the brain.
The next category is, how did the apes rise? How do they rise and become the dominant species on the planet? In the original book, it was described as apes were once kept as human servants, human pets, and just over the centuries they gained intelligence, they learned, and then they rebelled from there. Basically, I'm skipping over a little bit, but that's basically how it happened. So I'm going to give this point to Mark Wahlberg because there's a scene where it's not exactly like the book, but comparing the two movies, this does it more like the book described.
The apes we brought along have been very helpful. They were a lot stronger and a lot smarter than we ever imagined. The apes are out of control.
The next category is, does the main hero leave the ape planet in the end? In the original book, yes, he does. In Mark Wahlberg's movie, he also does. As we know from the big twist at the end of the Charlton Heston movie, no, he does not leave the Ape Planet, and this is further confirmed in the sequel, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where he is still imprisoned. After the hero leaves the Ape Planet, does he return to Earth? In the book, yes, he does. In Mark Wahlberg's movie, yeah, he does. I think. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% certain. I mean, he at least goes back to like Washington, D.C. or something that looks just like Washington, D.C. Okay, so I'm going to give it a point. Whatever. Next category is when the guy returns to Earth. Are there apes back on Earth? In the original book, yes, there were. It's a French book, so he goes back to France. He sees the Eiffel Tower. He sees the airport, lands at the airport, and the police that come, they're gorillas. And this is kind of just like it's done the Mark Wahlberg movie. Mark Wahlberg did go back to what seems like Earth. There's the big Abraham Lincoln ape head scene. It's a cool little twist ending, but I'm going to be honest, I do not understand this at all. It makes less sense the more I think about it. So he was in space in the beginning, goes into the future, onto a planet that's not Earth, and then later goes back in the past to Earth, and there's a monument to his main ape enemy back on that future planet. I don't know. Like, did he go through an alternate dimension where anything's possible? I have no idea. So that's it for the main categories I could come up with to compare the original book to the Charlton Heston and Mark Wahlberg movies. And if you haven't guessed by now, Charlton Heston's movie is the winner. Hooray! This next section is going to be relatively small, but it's things that were in the book, but in neither movie. The book has a frame story. A frame story is something that, the majority of the story is this that we know, but there's a little thing before it and a little thing after. The book, the frame story, is that there are two space travelers on vacation, a husband and wife going on a little cruise in space, and they find a message in a bottle in space, bring it into their spaceship and read it, and it's the manuscript of Ulysses, the main hero from the book. And the manuscript is essentially the entire text of the book. So that's a very large message to cram into a bottle, but the book has a frame story, and none of the movies touched on that, which I thought was kind of interesting. Besides the chimpanzee, the book also featured some robots on board with the astronauts that were in neither of the movies. The book also has a couple scenes showing the difficulty of the human learning the ape language and the ape learning the human language, which was French, because they didn't speak the same language, unlike all of those movies. I guess that's just to save screen time, to save that extra additional time of them having to figure out each other's languages. Towards the end of the book, the ape scientists also had a very top secret science room where humans were hooked up to lobotomized machines where they electrocuted certain parts of the human brain that had to do with speech, and they were able to get some of the wild humans to actually talk. That was not in either of the movies. This next section is something I haven't done before in an Adaptation Showdown. I have to award some bonus points, not to the Heston or Wahlberg movies, but to the third sequel to the original Planet of the Apes movie, which is called Escape from Planet of the Apes, which mainly revolves around a story of Zira and Cornelius escaping the doomed Planet of the Apes, going back in time to Earth, which was the same planet in their story. Escape from Planet of the Apes actually takes a number of details from this book that was not in either of the previous movies we were talking about. Check this out. So in the original book, the female character Nova they find, the wild human named Nova, she strangles to death their chimpanzee that was on board with them, the astronaut chimpanzee that was traveling with them to this Planet of the Apes. She thought it was a threat, and he wasn't. He was just, a nice little science chimp that came along the journey with them. He was trained to do stuff. She thought he was one of the chimps that were going to enslave her, so she freaked out and strangled him to death. That's not nice. Escape from Planet of the Apes doesn't feature that exactly, but it features a very similar scene where Zira and Cornelius' traveling companion is another chimp doctor, and he's strangled to death by a gorilla. A wild gorilla, like a gorilla that we know. Another thing that Escape from Planet of the Apes gets right that neither of the two movies did was the ape scientists are administering simple memory tests to the humans while they're in the cages. Now, the roles are a little reversed because Escape from Planet of the Apes is about Zira and Cornelius making their way to Earth. So instead of Charlton Heston in a cage, apes experimenting on him, it's the smart apes in a cage, humans experimenting on them. And Escape from the Planet of the Apes features Zira having to do simple little memory tests involving shapes and blocks, and that's pretty much like it was shown in the book. And then, also like in the book, there are some more advanced tests that they give the apes, which involve a dangling banana and some blocks they have to stack, and she climbs up. And in the book, he actually got the banana because, he was hungry. Who doesn't like bananas? But in the movie, for a bit of humor, turns out Zira doesn't like bananas. And that's the first time she speaks, and it freaks him out. So I'll give him a little bonus point there.
Well, why doesn't she take it? Because I loathe bananas.
Zira!
Escape from Planet of the Apes features a scene where the two human scientists who are on the same side as Zira and Cornelius want to help introduce them to the scientific and political world and integrate them into human society, and they do this by having them speak at a conference. Or in this case, it's like a Senate hearing, some kind of government hearing. It's like a big gathering of the important people. That was a big plot point in the book. In the book, Zira and Cornelius helped Ulysses get introduced to the rest of the ape society by having him speak at a big scientific conference. And although it wasn't exactly like it was done in the book, that's kind of what they did in the movie here, which I thought was cool. And also, like in the book, after Zira and Cornelius speak at the conference, they are welcomed by the humans and they're given a nice apartment, so they'll get a point for that. Also, like the book, when they're being integrated into human society, they get a proper change of clothes, at least for humans. This is briefly mentioned in the Charlton Heston movie when they say, "What do you want, a suit?" or something like that.
What do you expect? An ape's new suit?
In the Escape from Planet of the Apes movie, Cornelius is actually fitted for a suit, which is what happened in the book, except it was Ulysses fitted for a suit in the ape world, and they thought he looked strange. Now it's an ape fitted for a suit. We think he looks strange. Get it? It's a monkey in a suit. It's funny. Okay, now Escape from the Planet of the Apes actually features the most accurate rendition so far of the story of how the apes rose to prominence and took over. It was almost just lifted from the book. It's pretty much how they described it.
Humans took primitive apes as pets. They progressed from performing mere tricks to performing services. They learned the art of corporate and militant action. They learned to refuse.
Escape from Planet of the Apes also features an important plot point near the end of the story, just like in the original text, where the main female gives birth or was pregnant and then gives birth, and they have to keep this a secret from the government and the powers at be. In the book, Nova was pregnant with her and Ulysses' son, and they named him Sirius. And in Escape from Planet of the Apes, Zira and Cornelius have a son that they name Milo after the doctor who was strangled to death by the gorilla. It's like a way to remember him. But yeah, like the book, it could be a big deal to have an intelligent ape give birth to a new species or whatever on Earth, so they try and keep it a secret. That's kind of like it was done in the book.
The birth of the female ape's unborn child should be prevented. Both the male and the female should humanely be rendered incapable of bearing another.
And last for Escape from Planet of the Apes, also just like in the book, the newborn ape can talk very early on, so he's supposed to be very intelligent. He's a very smart, precocious for his age. He learns very quickly. So he's like only a couple weeks or whatever old here, and he's saying mama. That's just like it was done in the book. I don't remember what he says, but the child Sirius is able to talk a lot earlier than most things should. Now I just want to talk about some fun stuff before we close out this Adaptation Showdown. In Mark Wahlberg's movie, we actually get two pretty cool cameos. This lady in the cage, and who almost gets branded and then Ari saves her, that is Nova from the Charlton Heston movie. And then this old ape who's the father of the main bad guy ape, that's Charlton Heston, who ironically is now a damn dirty ape. The Mark Wahlberg movie also tries to reference Charlton Heston's movie by including his two most famous lines. One, I think, is done a lot better than the other.
Take your stinking hands off me, you damn dirty human!
So, of course, that's a reference to when Charlton Heston first talked to the apes in his movie. I think it would have been cool if they stopped there. And in Charlton Heston's one scene in the movie, they also make him say, "Damn them all to hell."
Damn them all to hell!
It's not the same, and it doesn't have the same impact as in the end of the first one, when he realizes that humans destroyed themselves through nuclear war, and he's cursing the entire human race.
God damn you all to hell!
Like, it's just not the same. The Mark Wahlberg movie has these creepy scarecrow-like things that are to signal the Forbidden Zone, Kali Ma, and that is a reference to the Charlton Heston movie where they have those X's also signaling the borders of the Forbidden Zone. I say it's a reference to the Heston movie and not the book because those were not featured in the book. Mark Wahlberg's movie has this line where the gorilla gets mad when Mark Wahlberg calls them monkeys.
Monkeys are further down the evolutionary ladder.
And I think that's a reference to Escape from Planet of the Apes when this guy calls him monkey and Cornelius gets mad.
You're all monkeys.
Please do not use the word monkey. It is offensive to us.
Mark Wahlberg's movie has this line where the main bad guy ape is looking down his mouth, jokingly, kind of half seriously saying, "I don't see a soul down there," implying that humans don't have souls.
Is there a soul in there?
And I think that's a reference to Charlton Heston's movie when we get lines like this.
Why do men have no souls?
Also, I really like the little visual gag here in Charlton Heston's movie when the Council of Orangutans, you got see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. That's funny. All right, that's pretty good. Charlton Heston's movie also has a couple cleverly written little jokes in there. Check them out.
In my world, when I left it, only kids your age wore beards.
Beards? I don't go in for fads.
I didn't realize that men could be monogamous.
On this planet, it's easy.
That's funny. Come on. That's funny. Mark Wahlberg's movie includes this stupid detail that he says apes can't swim and they're all afraid of the water. That wasn't mentioned in the book. That wasn't mentioned in Heston's movie or the sequels that I've seen so far. They just made it up because it's this like weird little plot point, and I guess they couldn't cross the river at that one point. It's stupid. I don't like that at all.
Apes are afraid of the water. They can't swim.
We drown. That's why every day we pray for rain.
The Tim Burton Mark Wahlberg version also features some very funny little moments, like where this chimpanzee is doing a seductive dance, I guess we can call it, for this large orangutan. Not super seductive, if you ask me, but to each their own, I guess. We also get this little cheeky chap. We also get an old ape smoking hookah and another one playing like a sitar thing. We get an organ grinder with a little human where an ape would normally be. That's funny. We also get this stupid line from Paul Giamatti's character.
Who wants to buy some aspirin?
Who wants to buy some aspirin? They don't even have guns or electricity. Why does he know what aspirin is? Does he know what it's used for? Or did he just read the bottle, sees that it says aspirin, then try to sell it? That's probably it. I don't know. So I also got to comment on their acting really quick. Mark Wahlberg's movie, the whole movie, he's just making this stupid like, oh, what? Are those apes? He's making the stupid same face the whole movie. And Charlton Heston, you just can't compete with this guy.
A madhouse! You cut out his memory, you took his identity, and that's what you want to do to me because you're afraid of me. What are you afraid of, Doctor? Damn you all to hell!
The last interesting detail I want to say about the Charlton Heston movie is that if you notice in the beginning, it's co-written by the same guy who created the original Twilight Zone series. I always felt like this first Planet of the Apes movie feels like just a giant Twilight Zone episode because it was written by the same guy. Well, that's about all I've got to say for today. I'm going to go have a banana. If you've stayed around this long, thank you. I really appreciate it. Please let me know what else you would like to see me cover for an Adaptation Showdown. Until next time, goodbye.